After the show, I got hit with a ton of orders for my slice and bake cookie. But as you can see, I'm actually in a dog bakery and that's all I have access to right now. I thought the best idea for me to get my slice and bake out there to everybody who is wanting them right now would be to let you make it yourself. So good luck and let's get started. For this recipe, we're going to start with our blood orange sugar cookie base. When you're zesting your blood oranges, make sure that you only get the brightest orange part and stay away from the center part, which is called the pith. It tends to be a little bit bitter. The more zest you put in your actual cookie, the better the orange flavor would be. For this recipe, you want to make sure you start off by using cold butter. Cold butter will help keep the dough as cold as long as possible. And this is a pretty quick recipe. It kind of all comes together really quickly once you've creamed the butter and sugar together. You just kind of want to get your flour, your vanilla, your eggs, your salt, and your blood orange zest, of course, all into your mixer. And this is a great sugar cookie for just a basic blood orange sugar cookie. But for this particular recipe, we will be actually dyeing each one of the colors here into a little part of the dough. Your dough should nicely come together when pressed into a ball, similar to Play-Doh, what Play-Doh would be. You're going to start by getting your dough into somewhat of a square as evenly as you can. You're then going to cut your dough into thirds, and your first portion is going to be used for white. Your second portion will be used for blue because you need the most of that. And then the third portion, you're going to cut it into 3 equal parts. First one will be used as red, the second one will be black, and the third will be yellow. The first color we're going to start by making is yellow because that's going to be the center part of the bottom of the base. Take our yellow. You'll want to use gloves for this because it will definitely help it from getting on you. And you just get that yellow as mixed in as you can. Otherwise you will see some of that natural cookie dough color. And you're trying to make it look as real as you can. Alright. Once you feel like you've got it incorporated enough, we're going to put a little bit of flour on our table here. And we're looking for a rectangle shape, so that could be the center of the plaque on the bottom of the globe. So we're just going to roll this down to the thickness that you want that plaque to be. And then you're going to come in with your knife and you're going to square it up so that you can get some nice edges. So I am just squaring it up for 2 here. Alright, now once you have them squared up, the next thing to do is to get them on a sheet tray and get them into the freezer so you can get your next layer of dough wrapped around these. Alright, so now while we have that in the freezer, we're going to go ahead and start dyeing the rest of our doughs the colors they need to be so that when that comes out, they're ready to go so we can just keep on moving with the process. So when mixing in the blue, you don't want to mix it in completely because you kind of want some of that dark blue in there to give it a little bit of that swirl effect whenever you do actually go to cover your snowman. Alright, now before bringing out the yellow rectangles that we previously put in the freezer, we're going to roll out the red and get it ready. And you want to make sure that you roll it out as even as possible so that when you cover your rectangle it's nice and uniform. So now that these are nice and frozen and hard, you can move them around. You're going to start by taking some egg wash, which is just a whole egg mixed with some water, about half and half. And you're going to put that down first, and that's going to go ahead and make sure that it adheres each layer to one another. And you want to make sure you get every part of it. You could also start by putting the egg wash on this side as well. Give that a nice little press in there. And then you want to make sure that you egg wash the top, the sides, so that it sticks on every surface. We're going to take our knife and use it as a spatula. Pick this up, and you want to press it against the side of the yellow rectangle and go ahead and gently fold it over, gently patting it together so that it stays nice and uniform. You want to cut off your excess that hangs over. Alright, and then you kind of want to fill in any areas that didn't get 100% coverage, so that way you can use your whole log. And then you want to cut your side to the length you're going to pull it up to. Now you want to remember to work as quickly as possible because the dough does get softer as it sits out. So then you just take this and you just press it up against the side and gently tap it all together using the side of your knife, and you just want to keep it all nice and square. And then go ahead and cut off the ends that just aren't going to work. Now you want to make sure that you got a nice press bond to the previous color. So I like to give it a little roll around. Make sure everything is nice and tight. Once you're happy with it, you take this and you just get this on your sheet pan and pop it in the freezer. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and repeat the same process as we did with the red, but now with the black. And you'll want to roll the black a little bit thinner than you did on the red. Egg wash all your sides. Just want to make sure it's covered completely. If you see any air bubbles, pop them out. Alright, and then square off the excess. And get it back in the freezer for another 5 minutes or so. And while you're doing that, you can start working on the snowman. Alright, next we're going to start by working on our snowman. And we're going to take our white dough and we're going to roll it into a cylinder. These will then be rolled out to form the actual balls for the snowman that we will roll into logular form. Alright, so we're going to start by rolling our white into a cylinder, and we're going to cut it into basically a small, medium, and large chunk. And we're going to start by rolling out the bottom ball for the snowman. And you just apply even, gentle pressure to the log as you're rolling it out, and it should roll out quite nicely. You want to cut it to about the length of the size of the base that you've already made, that you've got in the freezer. You want to make sure to roll each one of these out individually, so that way they don't freeze together and they don't form a weird kind of bottom from sitting on the sheet pan. So use your knife, kind of take an eyeball measurement of your next cut. And then you just kind of want them to make sure that each one's a little bit smaller. So this is how they should look. One getting a little bit bigger each time. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop these in the freezer and let them get hard. Alright, so I've grabbed these logs from the freezer, and they are almost, they're about 70% frozen, so you got to work pretty quickly. So you want to take each one and just shave a little bit off. Best to do this when they're pretty firm. Alright, once you've shaved a little bit off the side, you're going to take some of that red that was left over from making your base. So you want to make sure that when you're rolling out this red that you get it as thin as you can, because this is what's going to become just that little tiny red layer in between that's going to be his scarf. So you'll take some egg wash and put it on the bottom of the smallest of the logs and set it on top of the red and give it a little firm press. Take your knife and cut out just along the edge of the top log. Alright, and remove the excess. Alright, and then if you kind of roll it back and forth, it should pick up that tiny, tiny red strip of dough. And you can kind of press it once you get it up. And then you are going to add egg wash to the bottom of that. And squeeze that on to the next layer. And then you'll egg wash the bottom of that. Put it on the cut side of the bottom layer. And give it a nice firm squeeze together. And then you'll just make sure that there's no gaps in between your logs. And then you'll put it in the freezer. Alright, so while the snowman is in the freezer, we're going to go ahead and mix a little bit of that wintry mix into our blue that we have set aside here. So you're going to take some of the white and you're just going to start to knead in the white. And you don't want to go too much because you do want to be able to see it. It looks like I started with maybe too much blue, so we're going to add a little bit more white here. Alright, so when you look at the dough, you can see a little bit of white and blue and all different colors in there. Now, let's go check on our snowman. He has to be nice and frozen before we can put this blue around him. I just went and grabbed the snowman out of the freezer and he is nice and frozen right now, and that's where I need him to be so I can get this blue wrapped around him. So you want to start by putting egg wash first on all the crevices. And while doing this, you want to make sure that you start from the back and work your way towards the front, ensuring that you push out all the air bubbles that could be trapped in there. And also any excess egg wash. Alright. And you'll do the same on the other side. And if your snowman comes apart or anything, just push them right back together. Make sure you get some more egg wash on the other side. Alright, so I've given my globe and the base part time to completely chill. Not fully freeze, but be pretty firm. First, take your globe top and just slice off the end so you have a flat surface, and you'll want to do this slowly so you don't break the cookie dough. And then you can start to see what you've got going on the inside a little bit. So you'll want to do this to both ends. I'm going to take the globe part and stand it up and slice the straightest base that I can so that it has something to adhere to. And you want to just kind of shape up your globe if you notice any kind of abnormalities in it. Now that you've got your snowman where you want it and the sides of the globe the way that you want it and the bottom is nice and flat, you're going to put some egg wash on the bottom of your top of your base and Put the globe top right on there. Firmly press it down. And that's one of our logs there. And I'm just going to go ahead and square up this end piece that didn't line up perfectly. And that would be our log. So now that we've given our slice and bake about a good 5-10 minutes to fully chill, we're going to go ahead and slice it up and get it on the tray and get it in the oven. So when making your slices, you want to keep them about a 1/3 of an inch thick, and you want to go kind of relatively slow so that you don't separate the top from the bottom. So before I get these in the oven, I want to go ahead and tighten up any loose edges or any kind of frilled up edges from the knife, just to kind of give it a little bit more of a sharp, clean look. Alright, so we're going to pop these beautiful cookies in the oven at 325 for anywhere between 6 to 8 minutes, just to get them nice and golden on the edges. Alright, so I've just pulled these out of the oven, and all that's left to do is get them iced. Alright, so there you have it. Fully decorated cookies. This is a $10,000 prize winning cookie. I know this wasn't an easy cookie, but if you guys do attempt to do it, please send it over to us at Texas Dog Baker. We'd love to see what you guys come up with. Guess it's time for me to try one of these cookies now. Perfect.